Something happened in Los Angeles, and it wasn't the kind of event that draws attention through drama, loud headlines, or viral footage. There were no explosive statements, no social media overload, no immediate takeover by tabloids. And that is precisely why this case caught the attention of those who closely follow how modern Hollywood actually works. The name that appeared in the news has carried a reputation for stability, professionalism, and longevity for decades. And because of that, the way this story was told, or more accurately, the way it wasn't, became more important than the event itself. Because sometimes, in an industry where every word is measured, what remains unsaid speaks the loudest. According to publicly available information reported by established and credible media outlets, a brief situation occurred during a routine interaction in an urban area of Los Angeles. The reports remained restrained, free of emotional language, without details that could cause distress, and without broader context suggesting repetition or a pattern of behavior. Everything that was released was presented neutrally, informatively, and without implications of further consequences. By itself, that is not unusual. What is unusual is what followed. There were no rapid statements, no controlled interviews, no urgent attempts to close the story. Instead, there was silence. Not an absence of information, but an absence of narrative expansion. In today's media landscape, where stories are often extended for days or weeks, that kind of silence is rare. And when it appears, it almost always carries meaning. Media communication analysts often point out that a minimal response strategy is used when it is assessed that additional explanations, commentary, or dramatization could generate more attention than the event itself. In other words, sometimes the most effective way to manage attention is to avoid feeding it. But this raises an important question. Does silence mean the situation is insignificant? Or does it mean that it was judged that today's audience reacts differently than before? To understand why this case was handled in this way, it's important to look at the broader context. We are talking about a person whose career spans more than 4 decades. Someone who has been part of major film projects, successful television productions, and long-standing professional relationships. In an industry where image is built carefully and slowly, that kind of reputation carries weight. This does not mean anyone receives special treatment or is exempt from accountability. But it does mean that the industry, consciously or unconsciously, responds differently when the person involved is not known for controversy. Context shapes perception. The past influences how the present is interpreted. It is also interesting to observe how the public reacted. Instead of sharp condemnation or emotional backlash, the comments that appeared were measured. People asked questions. They sought clarification. They tried to understand the bigger picture rather than rushing to judgment. This marks a significant shift from earlier periods, when similar news often triggered immediate and polarized reactions. Today's audience seems increasingly capable of distinguishing information from interpretation. More people are looking for context, and fewer are satisfied with surface-level narratives. And this is where we reach the core of this story. This case is not important because of the event itself. It is important as an example of how modern Hollywood adapts to a changing attention economy. In a world where information travels faster than ever, the ability to direct, limit, or even quiet attention has become just as important as the ability to attract it. In the past, the dominant strategy was total narrative control. Today, we increasingly see selective presence, measured information, the absence of dramatization, and silence used as a tool. It is important to emphasize that, at this time, there is no publicly available information indicating long-term professional or legal consequences. There are no official announcements regarding project changes, nor signals that this topic will continue developing in the public sphere. And that, in itself, leaves room for reflection. Not about guilt, not about verdicts, but about how modern narratives are shaped. Because when a story does not continue, the audience begins to ask new questions. Not about the event itself, but about the system that decides what remains in focus and what quietly moves into the background. Has Hollywood become more cautious? Or has it simply become more sophisticated in managing narratives? Has the industry changed? Or has the audience? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. What is certain is that this case illustrates how the boundaries of public attention are shifting, how noise is replaced by silence, how spectacle is replaced by context, and how, sometimes, the most meaningful stories are not found in what is loudly said, but in what is deliberately left unsaid. And that is precisely why this moment deserves attention, not as a sensation, but as a signal that the rules of the game are changing. In the next video, we will look at another recent example where a similar strategy of silence led to long-term changes in how a career was perceived. Not through dramatization, but through careful observation of patterns. If you're looking for the bigger picture, the continuation of this story is waiting there.